You know, I was just outside and I watched the procession with President Bush's casket arrive at the Capitol and heard the 21 gun salute. And I have to say, I choked up and had a very emotional moment. And Vice President Pence gave an absolute eloquent speech extolling the many attributes of President Bush, his gentleness, his kindness, his strength of character, his courage of conviction. And I couldn't help but remember the first time I met President Bush, and he was vice president at the time. It was 1986, and I was volunteering in his Houston office. And he came bounding into the volunteer room, and he said, "Hi, who is this? I'm George Bush." And I saw right away how he made other people feel special, especially me, who was a lonely volunteer at the time. And later, I was asked to work in his advance office as press secretary, and what I observed was what many people have said over and over this week was that he treated everyone consistently, whether you were in a diner in Maine and you were a server or a valet parker or you were a head of state. And he wrote handwritten notes. I have lots of them that I treasure, and he always took time to put others in front of himself, and I think that that is such an incredible quality that he extolled, and something that I think we will all miss here in the United States and around the world.
And I think it's such a tremendous commentary on a person's life. And I think in this case, you know, a life well lived, President George H.W. Bush, when so many people want to share their personal interactions with you, when what you are defined by throughout your entire life, a life of service and a life in a position of power where, as we know, sometimes people in position of powers aren't thoughtful of those around them, where the defining quality that people seem to talk about is how kind you were, how thoughtful you were, how civil President George H.W. Bush was, even to people on the other side of the aisle, even to the man who beat him in the presidential, for president, Bill Clinton.
Absolutely, and Barbara Bush used to call them the odd couple when they first got together for the greater good to raise money after the earthquake in Haiti. And I think that he understood, because there was only a Democratic majority in the Congress, so he had to work across the aisle to pass any sort of meaningful legislation, such as the Disabilities Act. And so he really set that example of bipartisan spirit and showed that you could set aside your political differences, even if you were arch rivals, and work together for the good of the American people.